Here. Hi, Barry. How are you?
Hi, how are you, Jevon?
I'm doing quite well, quite well. Just wanted to say thank you for giving me the opportunity to um, listen to your presentation about Beach Cities Interfaith Services. It's awesome to
Thank
be
you.
here. So I've got the slide presentation working. Why don't you start off? Let us know about the organization and then proceed with your presentation.
Okay. This was a presentation about Beach Cities Interface Services that we gave to the Surf City Rotary. And one of the things I wanted to do was to give them props because they were the first to provide a match to the Help Them Home charitable event that is happening on April 24th. So this slide presentation um, gave them a good overall sense of what we do. And I thought I would repeat it for your audiences today.
Sounds good.
Okay, next slide.
You bet. I'll be the slide man.
You will. So about us, we are a non-denominational nonprofit, 501c3. About 4 to 5 years ago, we decided to sharpen our focus and provide services to the homeless. And we had been doing that for the previous 30 years, but we decided to take a different tack with that. More than anything, we wanted to emphasize homeless prevention. And that's what is probably about 80% of what we do. And we do that not by ourselves because we are a virtual nonprofit organization run entirely by volunteers, but we do that by connecting with other community groups and service providers. Next, please. So, when you're really talking about our philosophy, we're looking for permanent solutions and to make sure that people come to us once so that there's no dependence. The other thing is that we want to be serving clients locally. As you know, we do serve people throughout Orange County, but have a particular focus in Huntington Beach and the adjacent communities. And then we're really trying to provide rapid turnaround because sometimes when families are in crisis, they just don't have a lot of time to be dealing with a bureaucratic process. Next, please. So we also know that we can't serve everybody, mostly because we don't have the expertise. And so we know what our limits are. One is with drug rehab services, the other with mental health services. And then finally, assistance to people who won't work to advance their situation. If people want to just continue to do what has failed them, we can't help them. But a lot of times we will refer those individuals to others because it often happens that when you look at some of the most recent studies, that those individuals, about 2/3 of them, have a hidden disability or processing problem or some other kind of issue. So we can't help with people who won't help themselves, but sometimes that's not the end of what we need to do, and we know that. We also try to work hard with people who are referred through those referral agencies that we'll talk about. It doesn't mean we won't help others, but we have limited resources to help people who are not referred. Next, please. So just the general headings for referring entities are faith organizations, and there's really been four throughout really the history of BCIS, and those are St. Wilfrid's, which this came from, B'nai Tzedek, St. Peter's, and Community United Methodist Church. We obviously also work with the governmental municipal organizations. Sometimes they have people who they can't help, but we can. And of course, we will cooperate with them. Other nonprofits, including some who are also in the Help Them Home effort, such as Robin's Nest, Comunidad Literacy, Seroptimus Club, and most recently one from Mercy House, and then also designated individuals and nonprofit landlords. Next, please. So let's take a step back here. Who are the homeless and how do we help? And I think some of these will come as a surprise to the audience because we certainly were when we decided to reboot and take a look at the problem with fresh eyes. Next, please. So first thing that you notice is that when we first started this, perhaps 40-50% of Americans were living paycheck to paycheck. Depending upon the source that you see now, about 60 or 70% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. So we've never had such a huge cross-section of the population that was at risk. The primary cause here for bankruptcy is actually medical bills. That's not something that we deal with directly, but I can tell you that most of the time when people call us and need help, it's because they become ill, they can't go to their job, and then they can't make their rent. We've learned over time that sliding into homelessness can really damage families, especially kids. That gives an impetus to our prevention efforts. We don't want kids out on the street for any reason,
right?
Ever, because you just don't want to be there in the first place,
right?
And we got some, buttressing of our approach from a recent study that was done through UCSF. The other thing I want to leave you with is that homelessness is really expensive. That when people become homeless, there's a tremendous public sector cost. We're dealing with numbers from 10 years ago, but back when UCI studied this, it was $45,000 per individual. So we just don't want, for a whole variety of reasons, if we can prevent people from becoming homeless in the first place, that's a much better way of dealing with things than allow them to get out on the street, have them fail, and then say, okay, now we're going to come help you. Next, please. There's also a lot of other collateral damage. Homeowners who are worried about property values and safety, this is something that they're concerned about.
Sure.
The extended families of the homeless. You'll find that most of the people on our board have had directly or indirectly family members who are affected. And so they're also victims of this. Landlords, especially small landlords, they can lose an entire year of rent, and it can really damage a small landlord if they have to evict somebody. And then businesses, especially tourist-related business, it's not a good look. It's something that affects them as well. Next, please. So our goals are primarily to prevent people from becoming homeless, especially families, children and youth, to also recognize that resources for families are very scarce. The public sector is pretty well equipped to deal with single individuals or homeless. When you're talking about families, there's really a very small group of resources. And then in order to prevent these things from happening again, we really emphasize financial education. Next, please. So this is the first and primary effort that you're going to be seeing, the homeless prevention program. Next. We are really able to help with grants for unexpected one-time costs, often rental assistance, and we always pay the landlord directly. We're never giving money to to the people who benefit from this, we're paying the people to whom they owe money. So that's a way of making sure that people who are donors are getting what they're paying for. And then also for repairs for vehicles that are essential for employment. Next, please. So here's an example of a prevention grant. This lady was a single mom. She had 3 daughters under the age of 9, and simply hit a situation where her estranged husband could not pay alimony. And it wasn't his fault. He simply could not do it, but it left her 2 months behind in her rent. And with 3 kids, that's a really worrisome thing. So we paid those back 2 months in rent. And to give you an idea as to the kind of catch-22 that sometimes people find themselves in, she found out that if she went back to work, that she could, and started to make enough money, that she could no longer get subsidies on the child care for her 3 girls. And so ended up at home caring for her 3-year-old, but also working. And that's a tough row to hoe with kids. But somehow or other, she's amazing. She held that together. And so that's how we assisted this family. Next, please. This is something we have been doing for a bit longer, and it is where we work directly with people who are homeless as opposed to homeless prevention. So this is the second primary effort. Next, please. We get people off the streets by helping provide a security deposit and application fees. We recently helped one woman who was in transitional housing, and she had saved diligently but couldn't come up with the entire security deposit. And of course, we want to get her in a permanent situation where she's safe. We also provide move-in costs. Again, require financial education, because it often happens that people who are living on the edge just need a little help in terms of how to manage their finances so that they don't end up back on the street again, or end up with the prospect of being evicted. Right. And then again, we emphasize families versus individuals. And we'll talk about that later. Next, please. So here's an example of a BCIS homeless grant. This is Michelle Gentry, who is on our board, and she lived in her car for 4 years with her 2 daughters, and that car is pictured. It's kind of hard to imagine. She needed a help with a local housing authority, and so we helped her to move through that bureaucratic process and advocate for her to get back on a Section 8 program. We paid for the deposit, the application fees, and the basic move-in costs. And you can see she's holding up that check there. And then this is kind of, the secret to what makes BCIS actually work and be successful, is that 3 faith organizations provided essential help. And those are St. Wilfrid's, Community United Methodist Church, and then St. Peter's. And they helped in various ways. Some was with furniture, some was with donated kitchen items, some was with bedding. One parishioner at St. Peter's also helped provide high-speed internet because the girls were in school, and this allowed them to study from home. And, this is a perfect example of how when you give people a chance, they can succeed. These daughters who had been living in that car 4 years, one of them just got accepted to RN school, and the other is graduating at UCI and wants to go to law school. So they are remarkable. They amaze me. Next, please. I think this is sort of my my inner skeptic at work here, Jevon. People often have these great stories that they show, And then what you find out is that they're really not effective. So the big question, and it's something I would be asking myself for anybody who wants to donate is, well, yeah, but does this actually work? You know, does this get people off the street and then keep them off the street? Next, please. Well, the answer is yes. So far, we've had in doing this for about 3 years on this track, we've had about a 95% success rate. And part of that is because we follow up with clients 2 or 3 months later. And if they're still having trouble, we can connect them with other with other resources. If they need services, we provide them to we refer them to service providers. The people who we work with, who tell us about these folks in the first place, are also often checking back with them. Okay. So that's a critical component of what we do. And it's one of the reasons that this works. Next, please. This kind of actually undersells BCIS. We helped 5 individuals and funded them, 5 individuals in 2021. Last year, we funded 51. We had anticipated going into the year that we would hit 65, which is what you see depicted. We're actually going to are on a track to assist 80 to 100 people. So that actually kind of undersells where we are, but you get the idea with the trend. Because this is working, we're getting more referrals, we're helping more, we're getting more donations, and we're trying to implement this and help larger numbers of people. Next, please. So here's some outcomes. This is just for last year, 18,000. We're dealing with things at a rate of 18,000 per year of affordable, safe nights of housing. The shocking part is that half the people we're helping are under the age of 18. That surprised us. We really have this is a way of keeping people off the streets, especially kids. And then again, this is not what we were looking towards, but women-headed households were about 70% of who we work with. Next, please. These are other things that we do, and they're by no means afterthoughts. Sometimes we cannot help people, but we do know exactly where they should go. So we can shortcut the business of having them make a dozen phone calls to agencies that simply can't help them. And we do information and referral. We also do a mail service. And for key services, you must have a mailing address. If you're in the courts, you got to have a mailing address. For some housing authorities, you must have a mailing address. And how that works for people who are out on the street, I'm not sure, but this is how we're plugging that service gap. And 6 or 7 people whom we work with and provide mail service for in Huntington Beach get off the street because of this service, including and the city now refers people need a mailing address to us. And then food. This is something we've been doing for a long time. We don't directly distribute food. What we do is we hand it to another organization which gives out food once a week on Fridays, and that's Comunidad at 11 o'clock at their Calado Lane food giveaway. And everybody's welcome. So this gives us the ability to collect food and to say to people who give it to us, look, everybody in the community can come and get this. So next, please. That's our address, and it also gives us our website where people can make donations or ask questions or contact us.
Great.
So, Jevon, do you have any questions that you'd like me to address?
It was a a fascinating interview. I really liked the things that you had to say. I do have a couple of questions. One is,
Of course.
you mentioned financial education. What can you talk to me a little bit more about what that is?
Yes, I mean, what we find is that many of the clients, almost all of them, are pinched and they do have limited resources. But homelessness is not, in some cases, homelessness is not caused by that. It's caused by the fact that the limited resources that they have are misdirected. And so, what we do typically through the Orange County Community Housing Corporation is that there are classes, and we will ask people to go there and to get educated about their own finances, and that's really a key. In addition, we have financial partners who we have asked to provide education for as well. And sometimes we will talk to people, and I will discuss various kinds of financial issues. Certainly, I don't have your background, but on common sense kinds of issues, we'll give people resources that can help them. Sometimes, too, with specific clients, we'll actually give them a game plan. You need to talk to this person, you need to talk to this person, you need to talk to this person, and here are where they all are and how you can call them, and here's what their websites are. So it varies depending upon whom we're talking to.
Interesting, interesting. So how do you get your funding?
It's entirely at this point from private donations. We're a small organization, and for the most part are not large enough for state and federal grants. However, private donors have been very, very kind to us. And because those kinds of donors don't have strings that are attached, what it allows us to do is it allows us to react really rapidly. It is not that unusual that somebody will call us and say, in 2 days, I'm going to be evicted from my apartment, and me and my kids, we just don't know what we're going to do. Mm-hmm. Because there's very few strings attached to some of these kinds of efforts, and some private foundation donors, we're able to act immediately and not have to worry about too much red tape. And that keeps people from getting dumped out onto the street. So obviously we're not rejecting state and federal funds, but we've got to grow the organization a little bit more so that we're really ready to deal with all of the strings that come along with that. Mm-hmm. So to answer your question directly, it's virtually all private sources so far.
Okay. And I take it you're looking to grow your board?
Yes, we are. We're particularly looking for people from the business community who can help sustain us and give us some of the business expertise. Most of us come primarily out of the faith and nonprofit organizations, and also if we've been affected directly by homelessness. But we've gotten someone from the legal community and from the business community more recently, and we're looking for individuals from the accounting community and others who can help us round out the sort of help that we're providing now. As I said, we come primarily from the faith community so far, but we're looking to expand that so that we've got a broader base of knowledge.
So if I didn't have the ability to be a board member, are there a couple of other volunteer opportunities that I might be able to partake in?
Yes, we are at present looking for a volunteer coordinator to help us do things like nonprofits, like these once a month events that you see through restaurants, or to help us get do a much better job, more comprehensively with getting food donations, or potentially helping us with various kinds of fundraising efforts. So first, the coordinator, whom we will train, and then other volunteers. We'd love to have people help us more and make us more effective.
Interesting. Well, Barry, this has been a wonderful interview. I really do appreciate you taking the time to talk with me about the organization. It sounds like you folks are doing some great work there. That frankly, it's tough to get that from the large scale, sometimes civic organizations that we would normally see trying to fight homelessness.
Well, Jevon, we succeed because we're connected to all of these faith organizations, all these nonprofits, the municipalities that work with us, and the individuals who work with us. That's kind of our secret. We can't succeed without them. And it's their involvement that makes us as effective as we are. So, we appreciate them, and we appreciate individuals like yourself who are helping to get the word out and assisting in so many other ways.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Well, Barry, unless you have some other comments, I just want to say thank you again. This has been a really, really good experience, and I really enjoyed listening to you and hearing about BCIS.
Very good. Thank you so much.